Stepmother cut her hair to make her ugly, but what happened shocked her. The village of Uzoma. The village of Uzoma was a place of vibrant life, nestled in the heart of Africa. It was surrounded by lush forests, where the trees whispered secrets to the wind, and rolling hills that seemed to touch the sky. The villagers were hardworking and kind, living in harmony with nature. They believed in the spirits of the land, the rivers, and the ancestors who watched over them. Among them lived a young girl named Adissa, whose beauty and kindness were the talk of the village. Adissa's beauty was not just in her appearance but in her spirit. Her laughter was like the tinkling of bells, and her smile could light up the darkest night. Her hair, long and black, flowed like a river down her back, and it was said that even the moon envied its shine. But Adissa's life was not without hardship. Her mother had passed away when she was just a child, leaving her in the care of her father, a gentle but weary farmer named Emeka. The arrival of Neka. Emeka, lonely and burdened by the responsibilities of raising a child alone, eventually remarried. His new wife, Neka, was a woman of striking beauty, but her heart was as cold as the deepest winter. Neka had a daughter named Kayamika, who was around Adissa's age. While Kayamika was pretty, she lacked Adissa's natural grace and charm. This disparity gnawed at Neka, and she grew resentful of her stepdaughter. Neka's jealousy festered like a wound. She could not bear the thought of Adissa outshining her own daughter. She began to devise ways to diminish Adissa's beauty and spirit, hoping to elevate Kayamika in the eyes of the villagers. The first act of cruelty. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Neka called Adissa into her hut. "Adissa," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "your hair is becoming too much of a distraction. It is time you learned humility. Sit down, and I will cut it for you." Adissa, who had always been obedient, hesitated. Her hair was her pride, a gift from her mother. But she knew better than to defy her stepmother. With a heavy heart, she sat down. Neka took a sharp knife and cut off Adissa's long, beautiful hair, leaving her with a ragged, uneven crop. Tears streamed down Adissa's face as she looked at the strands of her hair scattered on the ground. Neka smiled coldly and said, "Now you will see what it means to be humble." Adissa's suffering. Neka's cruelty did not end there. She forced Adissa to wear tattered clothes and sent her to work in the fields from sunrise to sunset. Adissa's hands, once soft and delicate, became calloused and rough. Her once radiant skin was darkened by the sun, and her eyes, though still kind, carried a shadow of sorrow. Meanwhile, Kayamika was pampered and dressed in the finest fabrics, her hair adorned with beads and shells. Neka hoped that by making Adissa ugly and overworked, her own daughter would shine brighter. But despite her hardships, Adissa's spirit remained unbroken. She sang as she worked, her voice carrying through the fields like a gentle breeze. The villagers, though afraid to confront Neka, whispered among themselves about Adissa's resilience and kindness. The river spirit. One evening, as Adissa sat by the river washing clothes, she noticed a strange glow coming from the water. Curious, she leaned closer and saw a reflection that was not her own. It was the face of an old woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Do not be afraid, child," the reflection said. "I am the spirit of this river, and I have seen your suffering. Your stepmother's cruelty will not go unanswered." The spirit told Adissa to return to the river at dawn the next day. Adissa, though unsure of what to expect, obeyed. When she arrived, the spirit emerged from the water, holding a small pot filled with a shimmering liquid. "Pour this on your head," the spirit instructed, "and your hair will grow back, more beautiful than ever. But remember, true beauty comes from within." Adissa did as she was told, and to her amazement, her hair grew back instantly, longer and more lustrous than before. It cascaded down her back like a waterfall, and its shine seemed to light up the entire riverbank. The spirit smiled and said, "Go back to the village, but do not let your stepmother know of this gift. Let her actions reveal her true nature." Neka's fury. When Adissa returned to the village, her transformed appearance was nothing short of miraculous. Her hair, which had been cut short and ragged the day before, now cascaded down her back in waves of shimmering black, longer and more lustrous than ever. The villagers, who had gathered in the central square to begin their day, stopped in their tracks. Children pointed in awe, women whispered in admiration, and even the elders, who had seen many wonders in their time, marveled at the sight. "Adissa," one woman exclaimed, her voice filled with wonder. "Your hair, it's more beautiful than the stars." Adissa smiled shyly, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and relief. She knew the river spirit's gift was not just a restoration of her hair but a reaffirmation of her worth. Yet, as she basked in the villagers' admiration, she felt a cold, piercing gaze upon her. Turning, she saw Neka standing at the edge of the square, her eyes blazing with fury. Neka's hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palms. How dare this girl, this mere child, outshine her own daughter? How dare she defy her authority? Without a word, Neka stormed across the square, grabbed Adissa by the arm, and dragged her back to their hut. The villagers watched in stunned silence, too afraid to intervene. Inside the hut, Neka slammed the door shut and turned to Adissa, her voice a venomous hiss. "How did you do it? How did your hair grow back? Tell me, you ungrateful girl." Adissa, trembling but resolute, remembered the river spirit's warning, "Do not let your stepmother know of this gift. Let her actions reveal her true nature." She lowered her eyes and remained silent, her heart pounding in her chest. Neka's rage boiled over. She grabbed the same knife she had used before and, without hesitation, cut Adissa's hair again. This time, she cut it even shorter, leaving jagged tufts that barely covered Adissa's scalp. "Let's see you defy me now," Neka spat, her voice trembling with malice. Adissa's tears fell silently as she touched the uneven strands of her hair. But deep inside, she held on to the river spirit's promise. She knew this was not the end. The cycle of jealousy. The next morning, the villagers were once again astonished. Adissa's hair had grown back overnight, even more magnificent than before. It flowed like a river of midnight, adorned with a subtle glow that seemed to emanate from within. The villagers whispered among themselves, some saying it was a blessing from the ancestors, others claiming it was the work of the spirits. Neka, however, was consumed by a jealousy so fierce it burned like a wildfire. She could not understand how Adissa's hair kept returning, defying her every effort to diminish her. Day after day, she repeated her cruel ritual, cutting Adissa's hair shorter and shorter, only to wake up the next morning and find it restored in even greater splendor. Each time, Adissa endured the humiliation with quiet strength, her spirit unbroken. She continued to sing as she worked in the fields, her voice a soothing balm to the villagers' hearts. Even the animals seemed to sense her resilience, birds perched on her shoulders, and rabbits followed her as if she were their protector. Neka's obsession grew with each passing day. She stopped caring about her own daughter, Kayamika, who watched her mother's descent into madness with a mixture of fear and confusion. Neka's once beautiful face became twisted with bitterness, her eyes hollow and haunted. She could think of nothing but Adissa's hair and the secret behind its restoration. The spirit's judgment. One night, Neka decided she would uncover Adissa's secret, no matter the cost. She waited until the early hours of the morning, when the village was still cloaked in darkness, and followed Adissa as she made her way to the river. Neka hid behind a tree, her breath shallow and her heart pounding with anticipation. At the riverbank, Adissa knelt by the water and whispered a prayer of gratitude. The surface of the river began to shimmer, and the river spirit emerged, her form glowing with an ethereal light. She handed Adissa the small pot of shimmering liquid, her voice gentle but firm. "Remember, child, true beauty comes from within. This gift is a reflection of your heart." Neka's eyes widened with greed. She stepped out from her hiding place, her voice sharp and demanding. "Give me that potion," she shouted, her hand outstretched. The river spirit turned to Neka, her gaze piercing. "Very well," she said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of judgment. "But know this, the potion will reveal your inner self." Neka snatched the potion from Odysseus' hands and poured it over her head without hesitation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, Neka's hair began to fall out in clumps, leaving her scalp bare and patchy. Her skin, once smooth and radiant, became sallow and wrinkled. Her eyes, once bright with malice, now reflected the ugliness of her soul. The river spirit spoke again, her voice echoing like thunder. "Your jealousy and cruelty have consumed you. This is your true reflection." Neka screamed, clawing at her face as if she could undo the transformation. But the change was irreversible. She had been unmasked, her inner ugliness laid bare for all to see. The banishment. Neka fled back to the village, her appearance so altered that the villagers barely recognized her. They recoiled in horror, their fear turning to anger as they realized the extent of her cruelty. The elders gathered in the central square, their faces stern and unyielding. "Neka," the village chief declared, "your actions have brought shame upon this village. You have abused your stepdaughter and defied the will of the spirits. You and your daughter are no longer welcome here." Kayamika, who had stood silently by her mother's side, wept as the villagers turned their backs on them. Neka, now a shadow of her former self, could only hang her head in shame. Together, they left the village, their footsteps heavy with regret. Odysseus' legacy. With Neka gone, Odysseus' life transformed. The villagers, inspired by her resilience and kindness, chose her as their leader. She ruled with wisdom and compassion, always remembering the river spirit's words, "True beauty comes from within." Odysseus often visited the river, where she would sit and reflect on the lessons she had learned. The spirit would sometimes appear, offering guidance and wisdom. Under Odysseus' leadership, the village flourished, becoming a place of harmony and prosperity. Odysseus' story became a legend, told and retold around the fire at night. It served as a reminder that true beauty is not in outward appearances but in the kindness and strength of one's heart. And so, Odysseus' legacy lived on, a beacon of hope and resilience for all who heard her tale.